All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Monday Takeaway. For once, it's actually on a Monday.
And
My name is Chris Novak, and what were you going to say?
so far.
Yeah, it is. It is working so far. Last time, in case you forgot, last time we tried to do this, Google kind of crapped out on us. But for right now, it's working and it's working smoothly. So, and both of us are in HD. It looks like too. So,
Yeah.
we've got a lot going on for us today. My name's Chris Novak. Obviously, I'm joined by Robert O'Neill. I'm kind of antagonizing today, if you can't tell by my attire, and if you know Rob's sporting interests.
It doesn't bother me, though. The outside games are stupid. They shouldn't.
You're just saying that because your team lost, and your team lost last year too.
They should be exhibition games. They're not fair playing conditions.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think you'd be saying this if they won. I'm looking at the screen. There's actually, I didn't know that there was a sports columnist for the Baltimore Sun named Peter Schmuck. I wonder if he is a schmuck. Anyways,
got the AP poll.
that just dropped.
It did.
Okay.
Are you a fan of top 5 matchups?
I am a fan of top 5 matchups.
Well, you're in luck. Villanova stays at number 1. Kansas stays at number 2.
That's fair.
Virginia's up from 7 to 3, which
I guess someone had to jump up this week after this wild ass week.
Villanova or Oklahoma is at 3. They're tied with Virginia, and Xavier is at number 5, which ties their highest in school history and highest this season.
Fantastic.
So Michigan State is at 6. North Carolina fell to 7. Iowa is at 8. Arizona's back in the top 10, starting to look like a good win for Providence again.
Yep, and Maryland is down to number 10.
Yeah.
Surprisingly small drop for losing to a terrible Minnesota team.
Yeah. Well, it's a weird year, so lost.
I guess things are better, but still, like they were winless in the Big Ten. So
yeah. So off the bat, little surprised with Virginia jumping that high, but
I mean, like I said, someone had to be a big riser this week after the upsets and whatnot. Virginia,
I get that, but I feel like Xavier had a better week than Virginia.
I mean, that's arguable because Providence isn't ranked anymore, and Xavier beat down a terrible Georgetown team on the road, no less, but still a pretty mediocre Georgetown.
North Carolina State at home.
I mean, they won by 20.
Yeah.
And before that, I mean, they have had some pretty solid wins. I mean, they did beat Villanova at home. But rankings are rankings. You can argue with semantics all you want. I don't really necessarily have a problem with Virginia being up that high. They're a very good team. I don't know if they're in position to win the ACC right now. Let me see. They're in a 3-way tie with Louisville and Miami. North Carolina is still edging everybody out at 11-3 right now in conference play. So.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have a problem with Virginia being there. I mean, like I said, someone had to jump up, and sure, North Carolina State isn't the best team, but again, Providence is no longer ranked, and Georgetown is terrible.
Yeah, Providence still in the coaches poll for whatever reason.
By a significant margin over the number 25 ranked Texas Longhorns, for the record. It was like, I think Providence had like 102 votes or points or whatever, and Texas had 66. So yeah. They're still comfortably ahead. Whether they should be or not is a discussion for another day. But
yeah. Oh, we talked about the AP poll. I feel like we should just go right to Villanova Xavier.
Sure. So this will be the first top 5 matchup in Big East play since, I believe we figured this out, on January 17th, 2011, when Pittsburgh played Syracuse.
Yeah, and Pitt opened the game on a 19-0 run, and then Syracuse went on a 20-0 run.
What a stupid game. I vividly remember that now too. So that's the funny thing. That was on a Monday. I believe that was Martin Luther King. That was Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
That was the first day of my second semester of freshman year at
Yeah, I mean, FS1's treating this game like it's a big deal. They're gonna
As they
send
should.
Lavin and Burkhart are gonna be out there doing the pregame and halftime and postgame from the stadium. They got Gus and Raph.
As they should.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big game.
And
It might be the biggest game in Xavier history. It's one of the biggest games in Villanova history.
it probably is the biggest game in Xavier history as far as home games go too. And as I was thinking, and as we talked about over the weekend, if this game doesn't draw for Fox Sports 1, and if they're going to bring out the big guns for this and they're going to go all guns blazing for it, nothing will.
Yeah.
Nothing will draw if they can't get even a decent rating for this on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because none of their programs seem to ever scratch the surface even. And if this game doesn't draw for them, I don't know what to think. But that's another discussion for another day. Villanova Xavier, first one back on New Year's Eve, didn't really go as planned for Xavier. Unfortunately, Edmund Sumner took a really gruesome fall, wound up hurting his head. Thankfully, nothing more than that.
Yeah.
But then after that, you could say Xavier was put into shock. Yeah. But with the way Villanova was shooting that day, I don't know if any team could have beaten them that day.
Yeah, but now here we are 2 months later. Arguably, both these teams are better than they were, and that's hard to say because Xavier was undefeated going into that game. But
they certainly played the part. Have played the part lately.
I think Sumner's better than he was going into that game, and
I think Villanova might even be better. And that's a scary thought because Brunson's starting to get it going.
Yeah, and really, Josh Hart in conference play has been better than he was in non-conference play.
Absolutely.
Really across the board.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going to be a good game. And hopefully we get it one more time in the Big East tournament.
It would be nice. Little rematch of last year's tournament final, in which both teams will be better again.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Villanova wins, they have a 1 seed locked up, and they'll actually have a very hard time losing the number 1 overall seed. I think if Xavier wins, they probably have a 1 seed locked up.
I don't know if Villanova's going to get the number 1 overall seed. I think that's Kansas's to lose right now.
I mean, Joe Lunardi says Villanova has it right now.
Does he really? Wow.
Yeah, that's what he said today.
Okay. That's surprising to me because I figure Kansas, they'll always get a little more leniency just because who they are, and they always schedule really tough opponents and whatnot. And it
really doesn't matter. Villanova's going to be one of the top 3 seeds, and they're going to get Brooklyn, Philly.
Yep. So I mean, what it really comes down to is it's going to be in their court. This isn't a situation like how Syracuse put themselves in a few years ago when they were like 18-0. And they had Buffalo and the Garden in their friggin' hands.
Yeah.
And they let it slip away. They still played them. I believe they still played in Buffalo, but they still had. I
mean, Xavier, on the other hand, just looking at the tournament, they might not want that 4th 1 seed because the 4th 1 seed's going west.
Yeah.
You're looking at St. Louis, Anaheim instead of St. Louis, Chicago, or St. Louis, Louisville.
That's true. That's true. They might be better served, so to speak, playing in another region, but of course it always at the end of the day comes down to matchups, so it depends on their draw. Because I don't know who the 2 seed out west would be if Xavier did get that 4th one, because I don't know if it's going to be Oregon anymore. I think they might end up with a 3 because even though the RPI plays in their favor, they've they haven't really slipped off that much, but Arizona seems to be making a strong push now. So, yeah.
But anyway, just getting back to this game in general.
Yes. Anyway, back to it.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Absolutely,
should be a close game. Should be a good game. It's I would say the game of the week in college basketball. on paper.
I agree with that. Let's see.
I mean, if you just want to go on, KenPom thrill score, it's 5 points higher than any other game this week.
Well, then yes, that's what I was going to look at. But yeah, I mean, if that's what we're going off of, then absolutely.
Then 80.2.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, can't wait for that.
Yeah, neither can I. It's gonna be really, really fun. So.
I kind of feel bad for Marquette and Creighton. We'll be on at the same time on CBS Sports Network.
Yep.
And then I believe those are the only 2 games on Thursday for us, or is there someone that has to follow Villanova Xavier?
Doesn't look like it.
Well, that's at 7, so they're.
It might just be going with maybe a Pac-12 matchup afterwards or something.
Okay.
Let me check the schedule here.
Let's see. Wednesday, Big East. Nope, it's just those 2. So
okay.
Yeah.
So those are gonna be.
Yeah. So there's not a whole bunch left to say about it. We'll have a preview, a pretty extensive preview, I believe.
Yep, that's what's going to happen. So I might decide to draw some history back on some past top 5 matchups in Big East history. So maybe just in the 2000s or something like that, or as far as I can go back without,
Yeah.
digging too far deep. But hopefully that comes by Wednesday.
Just real quick, and go back to the weekend. Last week we really touched on everything, even though we didn't get to do one of these. It's going to be a little bit abbreviated today compared to how long these usually go, just because since we didn't do one last week, we kind of overcompensated for it.
Yep.
Saturday was a nice day, actually.
Saturday was Saturday a nice day for you? It was a nice day for me.
Yeah.
Great day, actually. Great weekend in general for yours truly.
Yeah, you went to NXT.
Yep, did on Friday night. That was fun.
You got to meet Finn and Bailey.
Yep, that was even more fun, arguably.
I watched that garbage yesterday, but
Yeah, well, that. Again, it wasn't garbage, and then it went off a cliff, and then it came back up, and then it went off a cliff again, and the main event nearly saved it, but the result just sucked. But what were you really expecting? Come on.
Yeah.
At least it looks like Ambrose is facing Lesnar at WrestleMania, which should be fun because obviously that indicates that they actually might like Ambrose to put him in that kind of match.
Also, if you look at where Raw is leading up to WrestleMania, Roman's going to get booed out of the building.
Oh, my God. He stands no chance. They go to Chicago, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Brooklyn back to back to back to back.
Plus Detroit and Nashville the next 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, Detroit is whatever. He'll get boozed probably. Nashville's weird because every time the Raw goes to Nashville, they treat it like it's some damn country music sideshow. So I'm going to be curious to see if they don't do that this time. And actually, in fact, that's going to be their leap year Raw because they've never done a show on February 29th ever. So I'm curious to see how they treat that show.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. Anyway.
Anyways, Saturday.
Marquette.
Saturday, yes.
People need to start talking about Hanif Cheatham.
Yeah, no, he's very good.
And he'll be back next year. And
stupid email sound.
My tweet deck, I usually mute that. But yeah, Cheatham will be back next year. And against DePaul, he had 20 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and he was 5 for 7. So I think we need to start talking about him because he's having a good year. There's actually a case for him to be the 3rd best freshman in the conference.
I don't think that's crazy. Before his injury happened, I think Yankuba Sima could have made a strong little case. But if I were to make an all-freshman team,
on Brunson too.
Yeah. If I were to make an all-freshman team, I think Cheatham would definitely be a first-teamer.
Oh, yeah.
And like you said, Brunson's come on of late. That's actually a good idea. We should do an all-freshman team for our Big East awards at the end of the season.
I mean, this year there's enough freshmen.
Yeah, I think we definitely should do that. Anyways, okay, so yeah, Cheatham has been very good. He's been flying under the radar a little bit, but his efficiency numbers, especially for a freshman, are quite good.
Yeah.
His true shooting percentage right now, 60.4%, 160th best in the country amongst qualified players, and with regards to Marquette, it's second best on the team. And Luke Fisher has first, but as we know about Luke Fisher, he's taken a lot of shots at the rim. So that Cheatham has that high of a shooting percentage, along with a 3-point percentage of 42.9, says some good things.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason why I keep saying Marquette's going to be fine next year, even without Ellenson.
And mind you, yeah, as you were saying, sorry.
You get another year of development from him. You get another year of development from Tracy Carter. Luke Fisher will be back. Dwayne Wilson will be back. I mean, Ellenson's a big loss, obviously, but you got all these guys that are going to step up and fill in for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Mind you, Dwayne Wilson had one of the better seasons for a freshman in Marquette in recent memory last year. His shooting percentages were 42.6 for 2-point attempts and 35.5 for 3-point attempts. Cheatham, this year, on 2-point field goal attempts, has a shooting percentage of 51.6, and 3-point attempts, like I just said, 42.9%.
Yes.
So that's boding very, very well for him because, the more shots he's taking 157 2-point attempts, 56 3-point attempts. So it's not like, he's only shooting a small percentage. No, he's taking a decent amount of 3-point attempts and 2-point attempts per game. So
yeah,
it bodes very well for him for the future, especially if he can possibly even improve upon it.
Yeah. So yeah, Marquette beat DePaul. That game really wasn't close. I mean, it was 13 at the end, but DePaul kind of went on a late run. It was 20 most of the game, most of the second half at least.
Yeah, not really much to speak about that one. Good win for Marquette to get back off the schneid. Split the series against DePaul. So
Xavier Georgetown, we were just talking about Edmund Sumner, a career high 22 in this game. And really the interesting thing about this game is how Xavier really just comes out of the second half and just blows Georgetown away.
Yeah.
Because this close.
I picked up some of that game after I came back from Freehold. By the time I got there, Xavier had the game pretty well in hand. You watched most of it, so just
it was a 2-point game at the half, and then by the 16:40 mark in the second half, Xavier was up by 15. So that's what they do, though. That's what they do, and that's why they're going to be a tough out. 26 and 0 in their last 26 games, leading at halftime. And Joe Davis the other day, he said, because it was his last time calling them this year, because he's got Dodgers stuff to do. Said after the game, he was real high on him. He said that they're a definite contender this year, and he saw them 11 or 12 times this year.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're good. Georgetown,
just a very disappointing year. It's very reminiscent of their 2013-2014 campaign where they went to the NIT. I'm guessing they're probably going to be headed there again this year.
I still think you can give John Thompson one more year.
Yeah, I'm
not going to blame them if they fire him, but
I just don't think it's likely.
No, John Thompson Jr. is such an ambassador for the program. And, what are you going to do? You're going to sit down and say, hey, we have to fire your son, but you're still welcome around here?
Exactly. It's a very confusing situation.
Yeah, and I mean it was self-inflicted. You know, that's what they get when they hire his son. But it's precarious.
Yes.
And then rounding out Saturday, Butler Villanova was actually a really fun game. Featured a couple big runs by Butler, and then Josh Hart just kind of took over.
Yeah, that's, I guess, what we've kind of come to expect from them, especially when they're playing at the Pavilion. They just straight up don't lose there. So, and, if Butler, who at times led that game, if they couldn't knock him down, I don't know who the heck is gonna this year. Actually, that was the last game they're playing at the Wells Fargo Center, at the Pavilion this year. So the streak is going to go on to 2016. So
yeah, and then Butler, they're okay. 18-9, got Georgetown, Seton Hall, Marquette. You figure go 2-1 at worst there. You win a couple Big East tournament games, you'll get in.
Honestly, I think the thing that's helping the most is just that the bubble sucks. And other teams are just shooting themselves in the foot, looking straight at you, LSU. As long as the other teams around them keep losing, and Butler, even if they lost on Saturday, and Joe Lunardi had them in. So, and as long as the teams around them keep losing, which they are, and as long as the bubble keeps being weak as hell, I could still see a scenario where even if they only win like one Big East tournament game, they could still be in.
That's actually a good segue. Speaking of a bubble team who almost shot themselves in the foot yesterday.
Oh, boy. God.
Okay. I turned
that was a game. That was a game.
Because I had some stuff to do, and Seton Hall was winning by 14, and it was really bad first half in general because didn't Seton Hall start off like winning 12-0?
They were up like I think it was like 12-0 or 12-5 or something like that, or I know Desi Rodriguez had like 12 points and St. John's only had like 4. I think they were up like maybe like 30-14 at one point.
Yeah, and you were tweeting, and I had some stuff to take care of, so okay, whatever.
And then you came back.
So I go do my stuff, and I get on to Twitter, and Seton Hall's only winning by 2.
Yeah, St. John's came on. And Seton Hall almost blew that game. That could have been really bad.
Yeah. St. John's was winning late in the game. Do you want to try and break down the final 10 seconds here?
Do we have like 10 minutes to talk about this? Because that was a confusing ass 10 seconds.
All right, let's see.
Oh, God. It's ridiculous.
St. John's was winning. Isaiah Whitehead got fouled. He made 1, so it was tied. And then it looked like an intentional foul. Or it wasn't an intentional foul. It just wasn't a smart foul. Malik Ellison put way too much body on him. And then coming down the other way, it looked like Kadeem Carrington tried to get a trap going, and he fouled Deron Johnson.
Yep.
Instead. So he made 1. And then he missed the second one, and Yakwe got the rebound, but there was a bit of a scuffle for it. And Isaiah Whitehead ended up with it, and he got fouled. And then he made both, and then St. John's couldn't do anything. So, I guess whatever works.
Yeah, seriously.
And then there's a handshake line, and there's almost a fight.
Yeah, I think the Big East is looking into it or something like that. I think I saw that yesterday.
From what it looked like, Deron Johnson kind of had some stuff to say.
No.
Handshake lines, they do the 10-minute cooling off period before they're allowed to talk to the media. Why do you have to do a handshake line right after the game?
Yeah, seriously. I feel like it's not.
You're asking for trouble.
Exactly.
All right. Let's see. Do we want to do brackets, or do we want to talk about the rest of this week?
We can talk about the rest of this week. That's fine.
Okay. Real quick, Blewett and Sumner are your players of the week.
Yep. I'm just kind of surprised, actually.
Blewett was not my vote for Big East Coast Bias Player of the Week.
He was not either. I'm actually very surprised of the Xavier players who were picked that it wasn't Miles Davis since he got a triple-double.
Yeah.
I know they gave the Big East Player of the Week award to Roosevelt Jones when he got a triple-double against St. John's.
And Chris Dunn, I believe.
Yes, I believe so as well.
But
So,
yeah,
a little bit surprising.
Yeah, I mean, Blewett still had a good week. 23 points in both games. Well, no, 23 and 13. Sumner had good games. Talked about that.
Yep.
He's still making a run at Ellenson for Freshman of the Year, but I don't
think it's going to be very close. I think Ellenson has that award in the bag.
Our power rankings aren't out yet, but I can tell you there's not much change from last week except at the bottom.
Pretty much.
The very bottom. All right. So Wednesday we talked about Villanova Xavier, and I referenced Marquette Creighton. That's a game that Creighton needs to win because they're still clinging to tournament hopes a little bit.
Yep.
I believe that's in Omaha. So
yeah, I think so, yeah.
Super advantageous for them.
Their next two games are at home, so.
Yeah, so they need to pick up wins, and then hopefully for them they can finish the season strong in Providence and in Cincinnati, but that's tough.
Yep.
Yeah, Marquette, I think Marquette's tournament hopes outside of the auto bid are probably done.
Yeah.
I think Creighton has a little bit more hope. Maybe if they can go 3-1, go be 20-11 going into the Big East tournament, and they'd probably have to make it to the final.
Yep.
But I don't think Creighton's a team I'd want to play in the Big East tournament.
No, I wouldn't say that either, mostly because of Maurice Watson, but that's just me.
Yeah. All right, Thursday night, Providence Seton Hall. Now there's a game where both teams need a win.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing a roundtable about it later this week. So be on the lookout for that. We'll get some fan engagement on that too. Like you said, it's a major game for both teams because Providence keeps sliding, and while I think they're safe, they don't want to cut it too close because if they do, then they could make like Texas was a few years ago where they were the not really comparable situations, but when Texas was number one, and then they just kind of pitfalled and they were like the 8 or 9 seed in the NCAA tournament and they got bounced in the first round.
Yeah. And, it's big for Seton Hall because on Sunday they welcome Xavier to Newark, and then they go to Hinkle, and then they finish their year in Rosemont.
Yeah, so they have to win their home games.
Yeah.
Because, schedule itself doesn't play out very well for them. It's not very friendly for them.
Speaking of interesting scheduling, St. John's plays DePaul again.
Again, after last week when they played in New York.
Yeah, DePaul better hope Billy Garrett's back. Otherwise, St. John's going to beat them by about 15 at least.
You think so?
I mean, look how they played without him the other day. They were all out of sorts.
That's true.
And actually, if St. John's wins, that would put them. How St. John's played? That doesn't seem right.
What?
15 Big East games already? That's got to be wrong. What the hell? How are they 1-14? Okay, I guess. But, yeah. So then they have 2 games left after they play DePaul. Most teams have 3.
Yep. Because of how the scheduling quirk for just a little scheduling quirk for them. Because they had one spot where they played. I don't know if this necessarily. Well, yeah, they played Like they played 3 games in the span of 7 days. So
Okay, so still, if they win, they'll be tied with DePaul, at least in the win column. They'll be 2-14, while DePaul will be 2-13 if St. John's picks up a win there.
yep.
Well, that's something to watch. Friday, nothing. Saturday, all afternoon games again.
Which is nice.
It's
Personally
nice
speaking.
until next Saturday when they all pretty much start at the same time.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's going to be critical mass here. But that'll be fun still. So
Yeah.
I like a little chaos in my life.
Butler, Georgetown in Washington, D.C. That is a CBS game. CBS, Fox, CBS Sports Network on Saturday. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, Butler, Georgetown. That might end up being a big game for Butler, depending on what they do. They play before then?
No, their next game is
That is their next game.
Yep. So that's a big game for them in that they better win.
I mean, that's their last road game, so that helps.
They better win.
You win that, and then you're looking at, we just have to win our 2 games at Hinkle.
It's a good spot to be.
21-9.
Good spot to be.
Yeah. Villanova Marquette, National Marquette Day.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. I don't necessarily know if Villanova's going to lose, but I think Marquette's going to give them a good punch.
Yeah. Yeah. I think actually they pulled off some sort of upset last year on National Marquette Day, I believe.
I think you might be right about that.
Let's see. I'm not seeing. It might have been a couple years ago. I'm not seeing it, but I know before the season that was a game that everyone was looking towards.
Yeah.
It's National Marquette Day.
Yes.
So be a loaded building. That place gets loud when it gets full.
Oh yeah, we know
It's
that.
NBA Arena. And then DePaul heads to Providence to face the Friars. Last time DePaul was in Providence, Chris Dunn got a triple-double, and the game got snowed out.
Yep.
So, something to watch for there. And then Sunday, there's no football anymore, so we actually have 2 Sunday games.
Yep. How fun is that?
Okay, Xavier and Seton Hall, which is a game that might end up being important. I mean, depending on what Xavier does, depending on what Seton Hall does this week.
Precisely, and I think that it'll be somewhat interesting to see how Seton Hall plays against Xavier.
Yeah.
Have those teams have met earlier this season, right?
Yeah, everyone's met at this point.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Xavier won 84-76 at home. I remember that game now.
Oh yeah.
That was on the day of the snowstorm. And Xavier kind of was in control the whole way. So I'll be interested to see how Seton Hall plays in that game with regards to, because I know the last time that they played in a sort of a revenge game, they got the stuffing beat out of. Well, they beat up Creighton on the road after Creighton beat up them on the road. So could Seton Hall return the favor to Xavier? Well, probably a little bit more difficult because they're playing a better team. But I'm still intrigued to see it because Seton Hall has proven a lot this year that, even if they wind up taking a loss to Providence later this week, they're not usually ones to go on lengthy losing streaks this year.
Yeah, exactly.
The longest losing streak this year is 2. Compared to the last few years, that's a welcoming sign. So.
Oh yeah.
So that's going to be a nice little way to end their home slate against a top 5 team. The crowd at the Rock will probably be pretty loud on Sunday afternoon. So that's going to be a fun one, I think.
And then the second half of the Fox Sports 1 doubleheader, you get St. John's going to Omaha to face Creighton. That's a game that Creighton needs.
Yes, absolutely.
And They don't usually lose. They have lost a few more times this year there than in previous years.
But I mean, look who we're, and that's no slight to St. John's or anything, but look who we're dealing with here.
Yeah. No, but St. John's, just one thing on them. You see them beat DePaul, and you see them how they played yesterday, and you look at their roster, and then you look at what's coming next year. They're gonna be a real good team.
I will say this about St. John's. It is likely super demoralizing to lose as much as they have, yet you don't see it within their body language during the games. They're fighting every time.
Yeah.
Even though they had a stretch where they were just getting blown out in every single game. What do they do against DePaul? They win by 15. What do they do against Seton Hall? They scratch and claw and nearly upset them.
Well, yeah. After the Marquette game, Chris Mullen was fine. We were there at the press conference. He was loose.
It was kind of crazy. What's kind of crazy?
What?
The game was almost 2 months ago already.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But compared to how, say, Dave Lato and the DePaul players were after they lost to Butler when we were there, they were a little more down about it.
Yeah. So whatever motivation tactics they're using, all those coaches there, they need to be commended for it, because it's very easy for things like that to happen and for things to just go completely off the rails, to look like they're not having fun, to look like they're totally demoralized, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're just not.
Yeah. Well, they did get to meet Steph Curry this year, so.
That's true. And I expect that to maybe happen in the future, which could be a decent recruiting tactic. Like, hey, here are the Warriors. We have 2 coaches on the staff who used to be Warriors who are tight with that organization, and they occasionally will come to practice when the Warriors are in New York. You can hang out with and practice with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. I don't know. That'd be enticing, especially if I was going to be going to the NBA.
Yeah, I mean,
shit.
you would think maybe if the Kings are good too, they could make something happen, because I know Chris Mullen worked with them too.
Yep. But the Warriors are the Warriors, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty almost certain that they'll be there
every time. So
yeah.
It's like, oh, well, once a year you're guaranteed to practice with Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Oh, okay, that's enticing. No other school can do that for me.
Yeah. And that's just some of the people that Mullen and Mitch Richmond know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they probably know a whole host, so.
Yeah. So, I would definitely use that for recruiting.
Yeah, I would too.
Is that it? Did we talk? Yep, we did.
Yep, we did.
We have questions. We have brackets.
Let's do questions.
It's real quick. Steve Novak did officially sign with the Bucks today, so a little bit of homecoming there. His mother was in Menards when she heard it. Made a scene, apparently. It's fantastic.
You apparently say is the most Wisconsin thing ever, and Anonymous Eagle agreed with you. So
it is.
I'll take your word for it.
It's a fantastic store. Yeah. And like I said, Steve Novak signing with the Bucks, probably a bigger story than Kobe's last game up there today.
Yep.
I only have a couple of questions, but let's get to them. I think they're the same questions we always get.
Pretty much, but everyone
is great. You have his first team all conference. Okay, it's actually getting easier.
It is. My opinion. Dunn, Bentel, Blewett, Hart, and I can't decide between Ochefu and Ellenson, so I'll just go with Ochefu.
Yeah, I think I would probably go Dunn, Hart, Bentel, Ellenson, Ochefu.
No Blewett?
I like Blewett. I just don't know if he technically is higher for me than probably Ellenson would be my fifth guy.
That's fair.
No, we'll see. Subject to change. How many Big East teams make the tournament realistically, and who's the last one? Well, I think right now you got in for sure, obviously, Villanova and Xavier. Providence is most likely in.
Yeah.
And then you got Butler and Seton Hall on the bubble. And I still think that if Creighton can rack up some wins and win in the Big East tournament, they should be fine because the NY Buckets had them as the one in the NIT last time he did bracketology there. So you figure they're the one in the NIT, they're right there on the bubble, right?
Yeah, I do agree with that. So I think Creighton has just so much to overcome with that loss to Loyola Chicago earlier in the season. There was a terrible loss. So they didn't have that loss. I think they'd be in a much better position than they are. But like you said, we're pretty much in agreement. Villanova, Xavier are safe bets. Providence is likely in, but they can't afford to slide away. And Butler and Seton Hall are fringe teams right now, but if the bubble keeps being bad, then they'll probably get in. So I would say probably 4 is realistic. 5 is, probably best case scenario. 6 would be just, a shock and a very, very good scenario for them. So.
Yeah. All right, brackets.
Do we have any more questions, or is that it?
No, that's it. Let's go brackets.
Okay.
Go Joe Lunardi first. Still's got Villanova as the number 1 overall seed. Not too surprising, I guess. And actually, just looking at this, I really like Villanova's draw.
Let me see what it is.
I feel like this gets them to the Final Four, probably.
Think so?
I do. I mean, you got Michigan State as the 2, but I don't think Michigan State matches up particularly well with Villanova. You got Miami as the 3. You got Iowa State, Purdue. None of those teams really should strike fear into Villanova, I wouldn't think.
Butler would be interesting just because they've given them a run for their money the last 2 times that they played. They haven't beaten them, obviously, but it's very hard to beat a team 3 times. Villanova would probably take care of either Bucknell or Hampton. Florida and Pittsburgh, I don't really like either of those 2 teams against Villanova.
No,
Nova's just very good. Purdue, I kind of worry about just because of Purdue's size.
Yeah,
their size could give Villanova some fits. They are pretty good defensively when they're on.
Yeah.
Iowa State has, a dossier of scores that could give them trouble. But, if we're talking about matchups against Purdue and Iowa State, that pretty much means that they're probably going to make the second weekend, which would be a good thing. And I'm not saying that, they should be satisfied if they only make the second weekend and they lose, but it would still be a good thing to get that monkey off their back.
And they're in Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly. So they have that advantage going for them. And what strikes me as intriguing here is Temple playing in the East as well, because if they get to Philadelphia, they too will have an advantage as an 11 seed. So that could be troubling for whomever that they play in between of Michigan State. Okay, let's be serious. IPFW is probably not beating Michigan State, California, or Seton Hall. So that could be troubling for them. Can you imagine if Villanova played Temple in the Elite 8 in Philadelphia? Holy crap! What a show that would be.
Yeah.
Anyways,
the entire Big East in the East here,
which is intriguing. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. I feel like the committee will probably spread the wealth out a little bit. Okay, I really do not. I'm looking at this right now. I hate Xavier's draw. I hate it. I think it's terrible. I think it's awful. I think that draw it's awful for them.
I don't know if I like them against Wichita.
I don't like them against Wichita. I know that they beat up Michigan earlier in the season, but
now Michigan's not going to have.
It still kind of scares me a little bit, but I don't like them against West Virginia. I don't know about Notre Dame because they're a very good scoring team. And then moving on, oh boy, can you imagine Kentucky and Indiana in the round of 32? The world would explode.
Yeah.
I hate this draw for them.
The
I
round of
really
32,
do.
which is the second round again.
Hmm?
Round of 32, which is now the second round again, thanks to
Yep.
the
Yep.
committee
But
changing.
we've known that though for all year.
You know.
Ooh, Providence, Syracuse in the West 7-10, old Big East style.
Yeah, but then they'd be playing Iowa and Des Moines. So,
Ugh. I would hate that. So,
which is kind of like playing Dayton and Dayton.
God. But you know that they earn the right, so
Yeah.
can't hate.
Yeah, so I think I like Villanova's draw the most. And actually, the cool thing is, if Villanova's the number 1 overall seed and you put them in the Final Four, a lot of people are not going to have them in the Final Four. So that's a little bracket advice for you.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people, they're Villanova, they always lose. Ugh. Hey, how did that work out for Georgetown last year when all you people who took Eastern Washington? Good job. I know they lost to Utah. I don't care.
I don't like to talk about Georgetown in the tournament because I had them winning the time they lost to Florida Gulf Coast.
Yep, and you had Florida State winning that one year.
Bad. It actually felt worse, though, when I had Florida the year they lost to UConn when they were winning by like 15 early in the tournament.
Well, you know, UConn happens in the tournament. And if UConn gets in the tournament, I don't want any team to – if they win one game, I'll start thinking that they're going to win the whole friggin' thing. So,
yeah.
And good news, good news, bad news for Oregon here. Good news is they wouldn't have to face Wisconsin in the round of 32. Bad news is they could possibly face them in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
So good news, but yeah, good news for Oregon. As long as they don't have to face Wisconsin in the round of 32, maybe they'll make the second weekend this year.
Yeah. Moving on to Jerry Palm here. He actually moved Seton Hall down to his first 4. He's been high on them all year. So a little bit surprising that he's got Villanova number 1 in the East. He's got Xavier as a 1 also in the South, which not even in the West.
This has to be one.
Stupid autoplay. Thank you, CBS Sports. Great partner of us, but dang your autoplay videos.
And really, we're kind of at the point of the year where all the brackets are starting to look the same.
Yep.
So, not much difference here. He's got Butler on the bubble, but in. He's got Seton Hall on the bubble, but in the first 4, where Joe Lunardi kind of had that flipped. But he also has Seton Hall as the first team in the last 4 in. So, they could play their way out relatively easily. So, those are your brackets.
All right, so does that about do it here? I don't know about much else to talk about, so.
What else do we have to talk about?
I think we pretty much discussed everything. We discussed what's going to happen this week. We discussed what happened on Saturday. We discussed brackets. We asked questions.
Yeah.
That about does it. So.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a whole bunch more. Yeah, we're done.
Yep. All right, so. After that awkward exchange, we're done here with this episode of Monday Takeaway, which broadcasted on a Monday.
Yep.
Big thing. Be sure to keep it tuned to Big East Coast Bias this week. We'll have some more baseball coverage. We'll have a few feature things going on since games don't happen till Wednesday, which is nice because I get to watch People versus O.J. Simpson tomorrow night in peace, without having to worry about anything.
You should watch that.
Yes, great show. You should watch it. The shoehorning of the Kardashians is annoying, but everything else is pretty top notch.
I didn't know you could say the F word on TV.
Yeah, and last week, Marsha Clark dropped an MFer bomb. So if you want to hear the possibly hear the F word again on cable television, tune in.
It was great.
It was fantastic because I didn't expect that to happen.
No, I mean, it's on FX, too. It's not on HBO.
Yeah,
so.
no, exactly. I mean, yeah, sure, they have a lot of, fringe topics going on FX with a lot of their programming, but still, they did not bleep out an MFer bomb. So
No, I was not expecting it.
Nope. But it's actually starting to get pretty good because they're about to start the trial. So
Anyway,
we
are done here, so stick with it. See you next Monday.
Hopefully.
Big East Coast Bias, etc.
Yep.
I'm Rob. That's Chris. Goodbye.